Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is time to crown some champions. Welcome to the 10th and final race evening of the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship, and I couldn't think of a better place to hold our season finale here in the Garden of England once again. We started here at Brands Hatch Indy. We now head to the full Grand Prix circuit. Alex Goldschmidt and Phil Kinch back with you one more time for 3 dynamite races around this fantastic, iconic circuit. Good evening, Phil. How are you, mate? You keeping well?
I am indeed, sir. It's lovely to hear your voice once again. I'm really looking forward to tonight. It's really been built up, and we're going to have 3 cracking races on an awesome circuit that always provides drama when touring cars race there. So yes, really looking forward to this.
Well, looking at the championship standings coming into this round, it is just 21 points in the overall standings between Chris Butcher from Smile Power Racing on 362 points, ahead of the Sancho Simsport entry, the number 89 of Dan Kell. Matt Richards rounds out the top 3, ahead of Mike Bell and Sam Fowler. Lewis McGlade, Scott Mitchell, Kieran Shanks, Scott Sovic and Ben Willis rounding out the top 10 positions. And Ben Willis is in the hot seat because he's gunning for the independence title. Looking at also the championship standings for the teams, this is really interesting, Phil.
Yeah.
Smile Power Racing and Sancho Simsport separated by just 4 points coming into the final round of the season, and there is an opportunity for the Kings Racing duo of Scott Mitchell and Jack Nichols to secure third in the team's titles. Oh my goodness me, can you believe the finale is finally here after so much action over the past 9 race meetings?
It's been absolutely worth waiting for. We've had some fantastic racing all season, as soon as I turned up, and before as well, and it's been amazing to see how everyone's been doing and how close it is as the final 3 races. So let's have a look at the grid for race 1.
So Chris Butcher starts on pole position. Alongside him will be Lewis McGlade. Scott Mitchell and Jack Nichols makes it an all Kings Racing row 2. Dan Kell and Scott Sovic round out row number 3, ahead of Mike Bell in the number 5 and Ben Willis in the 85 Drake Racing Subaru. Aidan Millward and Toby Davis complete the top 10, ahead of David Fidduck in the Red Arrow Racing 100, new entrant for the final round of the season, ahead of Phil Morby. Daniel Slattery and Ed Straw round out the top 7 rows, ahead of Sylvain Vessier, Jean-Michel Loriot, Jack Werrell back in the Westech Autosport 650, ahead of Sandro Ballesteros and Bradley Brockies. And that is 19 cars set to go racing. So quite a few drivers not taking part, the likes of Chaz Draycott and also Karun Chandok, if memory serves me correctly. But look at the conditions, Phil. It is a true touring car finale with wet weather on the cards here in Kent. Oh, my goodness.
Anyone would think it's October, wouldn't it? Oh, hang on. Yes, it is.
Well put, sir. Well put.
There we go. October in Kent. Naturally, what we expect is the spray and the mist and everything we're seeing as the cars go around on the parade lap. Yes, really looking forward to this. The guys are going to earn their money tonight, trying to control the cars on the tyres, seeing if the track stays wet, if it dries, tyre choice, dealing with the success balance. How many more different variables do we want to throw in? This is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree. As now the drivers start to make their way onto the starting grid, and as is customary here at Brands Hatch, because there's a camber to the right hand side, Phil, and it's a blind apex at Paddock Hill, they've got their work cut out this evening.
They have indeed. They've got to get the start off the line correct. Chris Butcher needs to get the perfect start, because as we've seen previously, it is possible from the outside of row 1 to get a better start and pull away and lead into Paddock Hill. This is going to be so crucial to get things underway.
So we wait for Bradley Brockies to bring up the rear of the field. Looks like Jack Werrell's pointed his car towards the outside. Very, very astute change of strategy there from Jack Werrell in 17th position. But we are about to get underway with our first of 3 15-lap encounters here in Kent, and it is off and away. We are racing for our for what is the 28th out of 30 races here, and already McGlade going round the outside of Butcher to get the lead going into Paddock Hill. That was a brazen move, but Butcher trying to get back up the inside, going through into Druids for the first time. The two Kings Racing cars in third and fourth respectively, but it looks like, I think, Dan Kell trying to force the eye of the needle there, and he's got past one of the cars, and that looks to be Jack Nichols. He's got past. He's now trying to force the issue with Scott Mitchell as they are now going to head into Surtees for the first time as McGlade tries to go up the inside of Butcher, but Butcher firmly shuts the door. Now is the real test, through towards Pilgrim's Drop and then into Hawthorns and then the Minter Straight through towards Westfields, as now McGlade goes towards the outside at Hawthorns, and Dan Kell trying to get a bit closer towards Scott Mitchell, but then has Jack Nichols up his inside, going through into Westfields. The pair tangled door panels. That is going to allow Toby Davis a clear run up the inside, and is he going to get through, going through Dingledale and then through into Sheen Curve, and Toby Davis makes it stick. And look at that, he's got a bit of a doppelganger livery going on there. One half has got the old tartan on it, the other half he's done a bit of a switcheroo there for us, hasn't he?
He's obviously been taking our notes from race-winning liveries and trying something different for tonight, as we see Mike Bell and Dan Kell going side by side as one to the Brabham Straight for the end of the first lap, and Dan Kell is really losing out here. Chris Butcher in the lead, just in front. In fact, no, Lewis McGlade's pipped Butcher into the lead, and Kell is the one that needs to make the progress forward if he's going to try and catch up any points for Butcher. But at the moment, he is being absolutely hounded for position by Mike Bell, and then he's got to get past Toby Davis in front. Close stuff already, but a perfect start from Lewis McGlade, as we've come to see previously, with the Ford driver having the best of his start so far and getting the better of Butcher at the start of the race.
Well, Mike Bell and Dan Kell absolutely at each other's doors as we go on board with Scott Mitchell in the number 22 Kings Racing Mercedes A45, and he is not too far behind Chris Butcher, who at the moment will still have a little bit more of a championship lead over Dan Kell come the conclusion of this race. But McGlade leads by just over 1.1 seconds. Great camera angles once again. Fantastic work by Mike Yao from Simply Race, our broadcast director, bringing us some absolutely brilliant onboards, especially with this one here on the left-hand side, the driver's side of the number 22 of Scott Mitchell. So at the moment, it is McGlade, Butcher, Mitchell, Nichols, Davis, Bell, Kels, Vasovic, Jean-Michel Loriot and Phil Morby round out the top 10 positions. So Ben Willis, who came into this round, and I'm just going to have a quick look at the points. He was ahead, as now Mike Bell keeps it planted ahead. Oh, tank slapper for Dan Kell coming out of the out of Clark Curve. That was nigh on a bit of a moment there, and I think he might have to virtually change his Nomex that he's currently wearing ahead of the next race. But well saved by Dan Kell. But in the moment, Scott Sovic in the 55 has got ahead of the Sancho Simsport driver, as Mike Bell now trying to get his way past Toby Davis as they come down from Druids into Graham Hill Bend. Davis has the run. A little bit more grass taken there by Mike Bell as we go on board with the Morby Motorsport number 14 Subaru of Phil Morby, who has been replaced by Louis Stewart for the last couple of rounds. But Mike Bell still trying to close up on Toby Davis, and the number 34 stays ahead for the moment here on lap number 4 out of 15.
You can see the team games already playing. You've got the two Smile Power Racing Astras having shuffled Dan Kell back, as even now it looks as though Morby is attacking. In fact, he is attacking more Dan Kell coming into Westfield, and Kell almost seems to be losing places as he's going. Not sure whether there's a balance issue or he's got a setup issue with the Focus, but at the moment he is struggling to keep places and is all the way down in 8th place, considering he started within the top 5 at the beginning of the race. So Kell has got some hard work against him to do, but at the same time he's also dropping weight for race 2 at the same time. So there's strategy playing, but the team game numbers, as we've seen before, Lewis McGlade out front ahead of Chris Butcher, stopping Butcher.
Oh, there's contact between Morby and Loriot there. So Morby drops down the order. So they both came out of the final corner coming through Clark Curve, and Loriot, I think, just forced Morby wide. Well, they both were trying to go into the same position at the same time. But look at Sylvain Vessier from E-Team Brit 2. He's running in 11th position, and he's trying to go around the outside of Druids at Ada Millward. This youngster, who does compete in karting in Rotax competition, has shown great brilliances of speed, but now it's about having the consistency, and he's got Jack Werrell in the Westech Autosport 650 MG just behind. But Ben Willis came into this, and I think just by looking at the he came into this with 162 points. Phil Morby came into this with 101. So what Willis needs to do is just have a consistent run of points to keep enough of a gap to ensure that he secures the Independence title post this race evening. So let's have a look at the replay. So this is Loriot on Morby. A little bit of touch there. Now that was coming through Sterling's. Now they go down through clearways. Loriot's towards the outside. He touches the left rear and it puts Morby into the barriers. And Morby drops like a pebble in the pond and makes a big splash, unfortunately, and that was on the gravel on the exit of Clark Curve. But meanwhile, Dan Kell looking, he's chomping at the bit now. He's trying to get past those in front, and that is Scott Sovic and also Toby Davis. So Dan Kell really needs to start fighting his way back up the order. If you want to get involved, share this link via social media. Use the hashtags hashtag TCUK and VMO. We're now on lap number 6 out of 15 here at Brands Hatch, and we have got an absolute grandstand finale. The action definitely up and down the order. McGlade now nearly has a 1.5 second lead. Is up the inside of Scott Sovic. Goes Dan Kell for 7th position. Now he's got to start doing the chasing. The hunter has, well, the hunted now becomes the hunter. So Kell has now got Davis in his crosshairs, and he will battle with every ounce of strength in his body and every bit of impulse through his brain to try and get past the likes of Davis and everyone up in front, to try and keep the gap between him and Butcher as low as possible. But I hate to say it, Phil, we could see it, and you know when you've seen it with previous, as we've had a DNF from Bradley Brockies, unfortunately. Not too sure what happened there. However, we've seen it where titles have been decided in the BTCC as, Kell gets raced. He tries to go up the inside, around the outside of Clark Curve on Toby Davis, and nearly gets into the put into the clutches there of Scott Sovic once again. But we've seen it before, Phil, where in BTCC competition, the championship has been decided on the penultimate round of the season.
We have. It's always been the case. There's been some bad luck for any of the title protagonists always at Brands Hatch on the Grand Prix circuit, and for whatever reason they've had to come through with a storming comeback drive from the back of the field. They've had a technical issue in race 1. Whatever the reason has been, we've always seen excitement and close racing, as we see. Where are we? Jack Wells at Sylvain Vessier going wide at Graham Hill Bend. It's always the case, and as we're seeing here, in fact, Kell's got past Toby Davis now, so Kell is up to 6th place, sorry, and now can try and see if he can build a gap. He's got all the hard work to do. You've got Mike Bell up front, just under 3 seconds ahead of Kell, so he's got to try and build that gap now and try and keep Davis behind. But as we said before, and as you said, Alex, Toby Davis won't give in. He's had his 2 race wins. And he's got the fire under his belt as he goes side by side as they're going to go into the Sheen curve now. This is not a place.
Oh, they tangle! Davis gets turned
Davis
around
out
and into the nearly gets turned into the barriers there. But this is what's just happened from a little bit earlier. Davis has a bit of a moment, but look at Kell. He just literally now this is down the Cooper Straight, so they'll be going into Surtees, and he goes up the inside. The pair go side by side. Yeah, so he managed to get through on Surtees. Now we go down into Pilgrim's Drop, through into Hawthorns. Davis starts to close as he's in the slipstream, and you've got Scott Sovic just behind. And they really take a good cut through Hawthorns, and then they go through Westfield. Davis gets a really good run on the apex, and he just goes up the inside. And you can just see how close it is. Davis gets ahead by about half a car length, and then Kell turns right.
Yeah, and that's Davis going around to the left.
Yeah, and Davis was trying to shut the door there. So realistically, That's going to be a difficult call, but obviously we've got to leave that to the stewards. David Fiddock in the Ford Focus. Now let's have a look. Now we're going to see the steering input here. Look, he's turned right. You can see he's turning right. And he's
turned into Toby Davis.
Yeah, so that's the evidence I was waiting to see. And good pickup from our broadcast director there. It's a real shame for Dan Kell, but also a bigger shame for Toby Davis, because Davis now in 13th position as David Fiddock in the Red Arrow Racing Ford Focus, who now gets a penalty for his troubles. Now let's have a look at this replay here. Now this is from
Toby Davis on board.
Yeah, Toby Davis. So he's actually defending.
Yeah.
Before they've gone in. Yeah.
You can see the contact just there. You can see where Kell's turned in to take the corner, and Davis is defending going into the right-hander at Sheen, and that's where the contact has sent him off exit stage left, unfortunately.
And good to see that Toby Davis, as it looks like Jean-Michel Laurier has also got a penalty for that contact from Bill Morby a little bit earlier on, as David Fiddock now being pressurised by Jack Werrell in the 650. Quite good to see some different liveries here, because obviously you've got the front and then the back end of Toby Davis's car, but then you ever remember the 555 BAR car back in Formula One?
Of course.
That's what Jack Werrell's livery reminds me of, to be completely honest with you.
It's a good one, that. I do like it. I do like the half and half. Very, very reminiscent of that. Yeah, I can see that now.
At least it's not a form of milk there, is it?
No,
like they have half and half in the US. Aidan Millward has the headlights ablaze and has got Ben Willis just up ahead. And I'm just wondering, we were talking last time out when we were at Knock Hill. Oh, no, it was Silverstone International. My apologies there. But I think, what was it? I think if memory serves me correctly, if Ben Willis finishes where he is, he's provisionally secured that independence title, hasn't he?
That's correct. He had an opportunity in every race on Silverstone's international circuit last time out 2 weeks ago to take the Indy title. Wasn't able to because he had some bad luck and some contact. I think it was race 3 that sort of nailed that on the head. He's in the sole position he needs to be. He's in the perfect position. He's just got to score points today, and he sews up the provisionally the Indy title today, as is. So he's just got to build a cushion. As close as Aidan Millward is to him at the moment, the points gap is in Willis's favour. And the work he did last time out of Silverstone helped to build that. Silverstone was the first opportunity he had, wasn't able to grasp it. Today, he's definitely going to get that as long as he just keeps scoring the points, building the gap. At the moment, being 8th position, so Dan Kell's got back ahead of Ben Willis after his contact with Toby Davis earlier. Willis in the top 10, doing everything he can, and he's going about it the right way in the Subaru.
Yeah, we've unfortunately had another couple of DNFs. So Sandro Ballesteros has also retired, as has Jack Werrell. So we are down to 16 drivers. As now we're on board with, I think that's Aidan Millward, isn't it? So he's currently, you can just see the number 85 Drake Racing Subaru of Ben Willis just keeping ahead of Aidan Millward. And it's great to see these. Oh, good evening, Chaz. I'm not going to say why we need to. Why have you just said kill me? You really did you not make it in time, buddy?
We are missing the focus after his really bad luck in race 3 last time out, and I was pretty hoping Chaz would have another go at this to try and get some glory, but there we are.
Well, who knows? I mean, Chaz, it's up to you, buddy. It's up to you indeed to see if you want to come back. And it's great. He had a great start initially. Is now Phil Morby trying to close up, and that is on Daniel Slattery in the Rage Racing 24 MG. So obviously, with wet weather conditions, the option tyres have sort of gone out of the window here,
They
Phil.
have, yeah. It's made life a lot simpler. It's wet tyres for everyone, and see how much they can make them last. Because even in wet conditions, those wet tyres can wear out as well. So even if it starts to get a little bit dry, you'll suddenly see the drivers diving left or right off the racing line to try and find puddles if they can to keep some life in the tyres. But it's down to them to make it work. At the minute, it looks as though Morby's lost a little bit of ground to Daniel Slattery, as we're back on board with Aidan Millward going through Sterling's and on the run down to Clark Curve, chasing Ben Willis and trying to see if he can improve 8th position. Willis, as I said, doing everything he can. In the meantime, we've got Toby Davis on a fight back. He's back in the top 10, so it's proving that even with that contact with Dan Kell, he's been able to push hard and get back inside the top 10, and he's bringing Sylvain Vessier with him as well. So the wet weather not proving too much of a challenge for these guys, although they'll probably tell me that wrong later, but able to try and get back on track with a little bit of contact and get back into the fighting spirit as Davis goes almost sideways through Paddock Hill Bend, through Pilgrim's Drop, and on the run up to Druids as he starts to build a gap against the E-Team Brit BMW driver. Meanwhile, we're back here with Aidan Millward chasing down Ben Willis, a lot closer to the back of the Subaru now as they go through Graham Hill Bend along Cooper Straight and trying to see if he can pass his independent rival and try and close the gap advantage that Willis has. Although, to be honest, I think he's got a little bit too much of a task ahead of him as far as points are concerned today, but he is pushing hard on the way down towards Hawthorns, seeing if the BMW can get a tow from the Subaru. Not quite close enough, but he's pushing hard and making sure that Willis definitely knows that this is not going to be an easy run today as far as points are concerned.
Well, thank you, Chaz, for posting the broadcastable version. And I think I know where the gaps might apply, but he said my wheel kept disconnecting every time I got in the car. Buddy, it's a real shame to hear. Is now David Fiddock. Oh, and his straw come to blows. Oh, well, that's basically David Fiddock's way he was saying to Ed Straw, well, I'm going to have to get past you, and he just decided to go about it completely the wrong way. I think that will be another penalty coming the 100 Red Arrow Racing's Focus's way. But at the moment, I'm just keeping an eye. Look at Chris. Now, let's just have a look at this replay here. Now, this is between, Ben Willis
sideways.
Completely sideways. I think that was through Hawthorns, wasn't it?
No, it's through Dingle, from Westfield to Dingledale, coming through to Sheen.
Oh, and
he's lost it again completely.
So he's kept. It looks like he's kept. He won't keep 8th position as a result of that. That's a real shame for Ben. I think at the end of the day, he's just got to keep it on the black stuff and just make sure that it goes his way. And that has dropped him to 10th place. But at the moment, that still keeps him 3 places ahead of Phil Morby, who's currently in 13th as Lewis McGlade now has a 2.2 second lead approximately ahead of Chris Butcher, who, as Ed Straw has now got a penalty. Right, well, that's interesting, but obviously this is down to the system. Let's have a look at the replay here. So Ed Straw's actually on the inside of David Fiddock, and he goes across to try. I think he was trying to defend there.
Yeah,
I think it might have just been a little bit of overzealousness, if I'm honest. But Lewis McGlade is definitely doing a really good job out there. But Chris Butcher has the fastest lap in his pocket at the moment on a 1:30.830. As you can see now, Ed Straw, we've got a great overhead shot here. He comes across into the path of David Fiddock. That was a bit of a 50-50, if I'm honest there, because you know, Ed Straw was ahead by a car length.
It does look as though Straw thought he had the gap and was pulling over to take the racing line. Unfortunately, Fiddock is just there by a couple of inches, and that was enough to turn the Mercedes round. So, not sure if that was an error in judgment or thinking the car's a bit shorter than it actually is. Hopefully he'll recover and continue. And in the meantime, we've got Scott Sovic and Dan Kell. So Dan Kell pushing hard now to make his way back up through the field again after his contact with Toby Davis. And at the moment, Kell is in 6th position. It's about the highest he's been so far in the race outside of the starting grid, although Sovic is giving him a hard time, and this is to be expected now. Zancho Sim Sport Fords against Smile Power Racing Vauxhalls Two leading teams in the series, and as I said earlier, it is the team game being played, whilst Lewis McGlade is holding Butcher back from scoring the points he needs to by leading the race. At the same time, Scott Sovic and also Mike Bell have been playing their part against Dan Kell on the track, and as you can see, Kell is staying ahead of Sovic, but he's still got to try and make up places if he's going to try and close the points gap to Butcher and try and mount any kind of attack to see if he can stop the Small Power Racing driver from edging closer to the title, dare we say it.
Well, looks like Sylvain Vessier from E-Team Brit 2 has just been in the pits, and whoa, he's shown up as a DNF now as well. So we are down to 15 runners and riders, the last of which being Jean-Michel Loriot from the Cadan Casual Apex crew in the 88 MG. But look at the gap between McGlade and Butcher. Butcher has been consistently closing it down. He's gone purple in Sector 2 with a 24/7 flat, while Scott Sovic still battling away along with Dan Kell. Now, look, the numbers game here really starting to play into prominence here because Lewis McGlade is leading. Let's have a look at this replay here. Now, this is Lewis McGlade. Oh, no
so
worries
really
there.
We're on live pictures still.
Don't worry, it's been a long evening so far.
We're working hard.
We are working hard as always. But look, Butcher is not... He's got the fastest lap. Andy Tucker, he's out with his ice cream gags again. Guess Bradley and Sandro stopped for ice cream. Yeah, they stopped for the 99 flake, Andy. You might want to ask him about that. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, well, it's too cold for ice cream, Andy, I think. But look, McGlade is trying to use every inch of the track and then some to try and keep the effervescent and hard-charging Chris Butcher at bay. And this really is going to be a case of wondering what is going to happen over the next two races, because it looks like that Lewis McGlade is going to come across the line, win the 28th race of the season. No, we're on the final lap. As now we go on board with Scott Sovic. Dan Kell really under the kibosh as they go through Druids. Now down into the left-hander at Graham Hill Bend. Very close between the pair of them. A bit more curb taken by Scott Sovic as Jean-Michel Loriot again gets another penalty. And that will keep him in 15th and last position, with retirements from Sylvain Vessier, Jack Werrell, Sandro Ballesteros and Bradley Brockes. But this battle isn't over yet, Phil.
No, definitely not. Scott Sovic harrying Dan Kell for all his worth. Trying on the outside again at Hawthorns. He's tried this a couple of times, having to duck back in. He's going for the inside line now on the run to Westfield. So if he can get a tight exit, he can get away with a pass. But we saw how this worked out last time. He slides back in behind the Focus on the run down through Dingledale and into Sheen, and Dan Kell doing everything he can to stay ahead of the Astra, needing every single point he can take. It is an incredibly close battle here. Up front, McGlade holding off Butcher. Butcher's closed down McGlade as well. So again, the small Vauxhall Astras against the Sancho Simsport Fords are doing everything possible, but this is Sovic pushing Kell as hard as he can, but unfortunately I think he's just going to hold him off.
So checkered flag will be out this time, and it will wave for Lewis McGlade from Sancho Simsport. Chris Butcher takes one step closer to the inaugural VMO TCUK title here at Brands Hatch. Just covered by just over 0.4 of a second between the pair. Scott Mitchell takes third ahead of Jack Nicholls, so a good run for Scott Mitchell's and Jack Nicholls, which puts Kings Racing effectively de facto third in the team's title. Mike Bell takes fifth ahead of Dan Kell. Scott Sovic rounds out the top 7 ahead of Aidan Millward. Ben Willis and Toby Davis rounds out the top 10. Daniel Slattery in 11th ahead of Phil Morby, David Fidduck, Ed Straw and Jean-Michel Loriot. Well, Phil, it is getting ever, ever closer. And just by looking, the numbers game in this respect is definitely playing into the favour of Smile Power Racing and Chris Butcher, because the numbers game speaks volumes, because there's one driver not competing tonight from Sancho Simsport, Matt Richards. And if you look at it, Lewis McGlade took the victory, Chris Butcher second, Mike Bell fifth, Dan Kell 6th and Scott Sovic 7th. So Smile Power Racing, I think, effectively look to have extended the title lead in both the teams and the drivers' standings overall.
That's right. The numbers game kicks in nicely here, and as we said, there's 3 Astras against 2 Focuses, so it's down to Keller McGlade to maximise every point they can get as far as the team's championship's concerned. But the Vauxhall's doing all they can. Ross Butcher's up front, as we saw, trying to harry McGlade and close down the gap to him. Dan Kell had to fight really hard against both Mike Bell and Scott Sovic as he's made his way back from that contact with Toby Davis earlier in the race. So yeah, it is definitely game on, as we'll see coming into race 2.
Yeah, so that's it for the first race. We've got 2 more 15-lap encounters here for the conclusion of the inaugural season for the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. Myself and Phil will be back in just a couple of moments. Welcome back. We're just a few moments away from getting our second 15 lap race underway here at Brands Hatch Grand Prix for the concluding round of the VMO Touring Car UK Championship. Bill, it's been an absolute pleasure having you alongside me in virtual commentary box all the way through from round 2 onwards, mate. But I just cannot really believe how quickly that time has just gone, wouldn't you say?
It has flown. It has flown by completely. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to be involved, even commentating alongside you on this fantastic series. The racing's been fun. The drivers, speaking to them, has been great, and it's really good to see that such an exciting series has gone so well. It does feel like time has flown by on this, and I can't believe here we are, middle of October already, and we're looking to crown some champions today. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there, Phil. Just really looking forward to seeing how much closer we get to having another three champions crowned here. And in many respects, that could be the case, that we find out who that will be very, very soon.
Yeah, it is really, like I say, they've got some hard work on their hands. As we've seen already, they're not willing to hang back and just, take it easy and score the points as they can. The guys are really racing hard, especially in the wet conditions for race one. Even more challenging. Wet tyres, wet conditions, trying to see if the car's balanced enough, seeing what they can do. It looks as though from during the break, it looks as though Lewis McGlade burnt up his tyres a bit earlier on in the race, hence why Chris Buescher was able to catch up on him. So again, tyre wear still a factor, even in the wet conditions. So every little bit that is challenging them is normal. More pressure on as we're in the final round of the series, and every single point counting as we get closer to the final race of the day.
Yep, it's very much the case when you sort of see how hard these drivers have fought all the way through this season, and to just sort of see. Now, I've had a little bit of interesting information courtesy of good old Toby Davis. He basically said, in case what you were wondering what the livery was on the back end of my Astra, is because THR will be restarting and they'll be back for season 2 of Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK. It was a team around in the Touring Pro Series days back in the early 2010s. And so both he and Chris Buescher apparently are joining forces. That sounds very, very interesting indeed. So my hat is doffed to the Toby Davis and also to Chris Buescher as well. That sounds really, really exciting for VMO, but also for sim racing in general, Phil.
It does, and it's what we always like, that when you come to the end of a season and you always like to see if the rumour mill's in effect or the silly season is underway as to who's going where. And to be honest, if that is what the Astras are going to look like, I like this. It's a great livery on Toby Davis's car, and both he and Chris Buescher, together a really, really strong lineup, especially after Toby's good run, taking his 2 wins previously. It really, really should enhance the series, and they should be able to do really well next year.
But I have to ask one request of you, Toby, and you know where I'm going with this, Phil.
Yeah.
Some of his livery has to include the tartan. It needs to be a mainstay, Toby, please.
Yeah.
If you're going to bring back THR, keep the tartan for yourself a little bit, and just always have your grandmother with you at all side when you're racing in VMO. And I mean, it was so graceful of him to do that at Knockhill, which powered him to 2 wins. And I think it's part and parcel of his livery character now, isn't it? It needs to be somewhere on that car.
Yeah. It is almost like his little icon. Every livery has some sort of icon on it, famous liveries down the line. In any forms of motorsport that you see, a specific sponsor you align the team or the driver with. And in this case, the tartan with Toby Davis, it just has to stay. It made its mark, as you say, in Knockhill when he took his first 2 race wins in the series. And he's had improved and better performances ever since. So there's a good luck charm there, I think, that needs to stay on the Astra for... obviously next season, and that should power him along quite nicely.
Well, let's go through the grid for the second race of the evening, but also the penultimate race of the inaugural season. Lewis McGlade taking the win in race number 1. We'll start on pole position ahead of Chris Buescher. Scott Mitchell and Jack Nicholls once again line up on row number 2. Mike Bell and Dan Kell round out row number 3 in the numbers 5 and 89 respectively. The number 55 is Scott Sovic, the number 67 of option 13 Sim Sports. Aidan Millward rounds out the top 4 rows, completing the top 10. It is the 85 of Drake Racing's Ben Willis and Davis Racing's Toby Davis in the 34. Daniel Slattery in the number 24 Rage Racing MG starts 11th ahead of the number 14 Subaru of Morby Motorsports Phil Morby. David Fiddick in the Red Arrow Racing 100 Ford Focus starts 13th alongside the King's Dealer Racing number 17 of Ed Straw in the Mercedes. Jean-Michel Loriot in the 88 from Cadan Casual Apex. The E-Team Brit 2, number 129 of Sylvain Vessier. Number 105 of E-Team Brits, Bradley Brockies. And E-Team Brits number 19, Sandro Ballesteros. Round out the 18 strong. Well, if race 1 was anything to go by, Phil, race 2 gets a little bit more interesting. But then for race 3, we do the reverse grid draw from numbers from positions 6 to 12 already, and it looks like Sylvain Vessier is already in the pits.
It does, yeah. I was going to say.
I'm not too sure whether there is a possible problem for the E-Team Brit 2 driver, which would be a shame for the penultimate race of the season, as Lewis McGlade. Now it looks like things are a little bit drier, and I'm now going to have a look at the option tyre choices.
Yeah, which is a soft tyre for today's round, which we haven't seen since Silverstone National, when I made my debut in commentary all the way back when. So this is going to be interesting.
Well, looks like Chris Butcher is going to be on the option tyres. So will quite a few other drivers that are with us. Toby Davis, David Fidduck, and we are waiting for them to let slip the dogs of war. We're off and away for race 2, the penultimate race of the season, as it's side by side between the two drivers at the front of the field. McGlade gets the advantage going into Paddock Hill Bend. Sylvain Vessier will be released from the pit lane after everyone has got past, as it looks like there's been a little bit of a contact between Ed Straw and I think David Fidduck at each other's doors once again, as now McGlade getting pressurised, as that looks like Nichols ran wide coming out of Druids. Scott Mitchell looks to have gotten ahead of Chris Butcher for the quickest of moments, but the pair go side by side heading into Surtees. Butcher up the inside of the number 22 Kings Racing Mercedes, but Mitchell does a bit of the old Ricard Rydell on Chris Butcher, going side by side. They're going to head down to Pilgrim's Drop, and this means that for Hawthorns, Scott Mitchell will have the inside line. He's going to sweep up the inside, go through to second. Nicely done by Scott Mitchell, but he runs a little bit wide. That allows Butcher to try and get through on Westfields. He now retaliates, does the number 65, back into second position. Mitchell runs wide. This is now going to allow Dan Kell to get through past the Mercedes. So does Mike Bell. So the battle for the title really, really heating up and going up another gear as we go on board the roof of Dan Kell from Sancho Sim Sports number 89 Ford Focus. This is where the elbows are definitely well and truly out here, Phil.
They are, definitely. You can see Mike Bell pushing hard, and right in front of Dan Kell, who we're riding on board with, is Chris Butcher, his title rival. So at the end of lap 1 already, Kell's managed to make up places off the line. He's had a good start as Bell goes to look at the inside of Paddock Hill Bend and doesn't find the space. Meanwhile, Scott Mitchell is in play, as is Toby Davis as well, who has got Mitchell defending going into Druids, as Davis tries to see if he can make places back up. Davis also on the option tyre. So for me, the equation now is how long does that option tyre last on this dry circuit? Some of the guys going for the option tyre straight away, either to get it out of the way if it's going to cause some pain, or to see if it's going to be the better option to go quicker on what tyre life they can get out of it in the 15 laps that we have. So in the meantime, we can see as McGlade is literally a tenth ahead of Butcher, and Kelly's right behind Butcher as we go to a replay. And yep, there is some contact.
Oh, now Bradley Brockies gets complete. Now, Bradley Brockies I've just seen as a DNF, but look, Ed Straw's there. Oh, Loriot goes straight into the path of Brockies. Front bumper gets ripped asunder on the 105, and that is an instant DNF. What a shame for Bradley Brockies. 2 DNFs in 2 straight races here at Brands Hatch. There's now Toby Davis trying to force his way past Scott Mitchell, as there is an absolute cavalcade. Oh, 2 off, and that is Butcher. Was that Kell as well? That was. Oh my goodness, the championship, yeah. So now that means Scott Mitchell up to second. Toby Davis steamrolls up the inside of Mike Bell for 3rd place. Chris Butcher now in 6th behind teammate Scott Sovic. Jack Nichols with a ringside seat as Lewis McGlade secures the fastest lap of a 1 minute 30.489 in his gap now between him and Scott Mitchell, who's being hounded by Toby Davis. As now up the inside of Bell goes Jack Nichols. But then Bell gets the switch back. Dan Kell trying to retaliate, nearly makes it 3 wide coming out of Druids, down into the approach into Graham Hill, as once again Nichols gets past Bell rather easily going through Graham Hill Bend as they go into Surtees. Oh, it's definitely kicking off right now. Let's have a look at the replay. Phil, take us through it.
It is. So coming down through Westfields and into Dingledale, you can see Kell and Butcher side by side with McGlade just in front. The two of them then on the way into Sheen Curve. Slight bit of contact. It looks as though, yes, slight bit of contact from Mike Bell from into Chris Butcher. Butcher's then taking the line for Sterling's, and as he comes through Sterling's, there's contact with the front of the Ford Focus, and this takes the two cars off to the right-hand side. And as you can see, Butcher's steering to the left. It looks as though here you can guarantee that Kell's doing everything he can to try and stay on track against his title role, but he can't afford to lose places. And as the two come back on track, that's where the likes of Mitchell and Bell and Davis promote themselves further up and gain from the contact that's been had there. But as we can see, Dan Kell once again pushing Mike Bell for positions. He's now got to make his way back up again for Dan Kell. The hard work begins once more after he was up at the front and had the support of his teammate Lewis McGlade, who again is doing what he needs to. Is a slide from Mike Bell through Paddock Hill, side by side with Dan Kell, coming into Druids now, and Bell has the inside line to defend. Kell stays with him though. He stays with him, goes wide onto the curbing on the way. Oh, and this contact and Bell's out.
Pirouetting like a ballerina goes Mike Bell, dropping him out of the top 10. Meanwhile, Phil, Chris Butcher has put in the fastest lap of the race, 1:28.883, and he is closing on Lewis McGlade. Now let's have a look at this replay here. So it's up. So you got Kell towards the outside, Bell up the inside through the apex of Druids. Okay, now what's going to happen?
Contact on the corner.
The slightest of touches, and Bell hits the barriers and pirouettes, and luckily enough everyone else manages to avoid, and Mike Bell now is in 9th place, and he's ahead of David Fiddick, who's having a good debut in the second race of the evening. But that really has jeopardised any opportunity of Mike Bell even trying to go for even a top 5 in this race. But look at the gap between McGlade and Butcher. Butcher has got the bit in the teeth. He effectively wants to make sure that he has that chance of getting ahead and staying ahead of. And look, he's put another fastest lap in 1:28.722. He's right up close and personal to the back bumper of Lewis McGlade, going towards the outside of Druids, trying to get the cutback. He takes the tighter line through the corner. Now the run down to Graham Hill Bend. Look, they're pushing each other like crazy here, Phil.
And they're both on the option tyres, remember, as well. So they're taking the grip while they've got it and using as much tyre as they can get away with, as they dare to get away with, as we've got 10 laps of this race left. Not far behind Butcher as well is Toby Davis, and we know that if he gets a sniff of having a chance of being on the podium or even the win, he'll go for it, as we see Butcher on the outside line coming down to Hawthorne to McGlade. McGlade defends. There is Davis as promised, and the three of them. In fact, Butcher going for the inside line for Hawthorne.
Davis trying to make it 3 wide. Oh, Davis, you absolute charlatan. He's going to try and make it stick. Toby Davis comes from absolutely nowhere, manages to get past Butcher. Now he's going up the inside of McGlade. The pair clash door panels. Look, Scott Mitchell's waiting. He's ready to see if he can get an opportunity, and still McGlade and Davis tangle. It's a 4-way scrap. Look, there's 6 cars that could be in an opportunity for the lead and also the victory in this race, as Davis hits the curbs coming out of Clark Curve, and now onto the Bradman Straight. Lap number 6 in the books. 9 to go. McGlade still leads. Well, 10 laps to go, but Toby Davis made it 3 wide.
What did I say?
I mean, that's gonna be the highlight. That's gonna be the highlight of the season. Toby Davis making it 3 wide round Brands Hatch Grand Prix.
Oh,
wow,
yeah,
he did a Mike Rockefeller.
That is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But like I said, 6-car train. It's allowed Mitchell, who's looking to get the inside of Kell, or has Kell gone past Mitchell? Let's have a look. No, Mitchell and Nichols. In fact, Kell's up to 4th place now. So that
no, he's not. No, he's not. I think Mitchell's trying to go up the inside. He is. So let's see if he's got the job done yet. I'm not too sure on that one, but we'll wait and see, because the gaps are so they're literally so. They're so small.
They're trying to hold off the focus from the looks of it, the two Kings Racing Mercedes. I think Mitchell's still ahead as they come through Hawthorne. Yeah.
He is indeed, and Jack Nicholls just on the back bumper of the 89. You can just see how hard Kell is pushing because he wants to try. He needs to keep this going right up until the last race. So the closer he can get to Butcher, he's 2 positions away, and Kell hasn't really had the best of luck in the first race.
No, he needs to make up for that as best he can. He's already had some contact he could try and avoid, as it looks as though Toby Davis has taken the lead from Lewis McGlade up front, and Chris Butcher is also going for Lewis McGlade into Paddock Hill Bend on the outside. It's not one that normally works, but McGlade is defending, Butcher on the curbing as they come up the hill into Druids. Again, both guys on option tyres, on the soft tyres. McGlade slots in just ahead of the Astra. Meanwhile, Dan Kell is fighting with the 2 Kings Racing Mercedes of Scott Mitchell and Jack Nicholls, and that's also allowing Scott Sovic to close up. So Kell needs to be getting a move on here, putting those soft tyres to good use, using the grip, getting as much out of it as he possibly can to try and close the gap up front. He had the option, and unfortunately contact means it's moved him back. He's very lucky to get a second chance to try and move back into contention. As we see Toby Davis defending coming into Hawthorns, and Lewis McGlade again trying to hold off flying Chris Butcher. Butcher doing all he needs to do as long as he's ahead of Kell. Any positions he gains, more points scored, adds to his advantage that he has already.
Yeah, well, it looked like Jack Nicholls did have the run on the inside of Dan Kell going through Druids, but he unfortunately did not get a second bite of the cherry. But now, yeah, Scott Sovic right on the back bumper of Jack Nicholls. But however, wherever Kings Racing finish in terms of all 3 races, if they have overtaken SRR Racing, who were 3rd place up until this point after race 1, as now McGlade being pressurised by Butcher, who goes towards the inside on the Brabham Straight, through into Paddock Hill Bend. The 65, current points leader coming to this final round of the season, now gets the inside run up towards Druid. Butcher this time will take 2nd position, but it's about how brazen Lewis McGlade is. He's keeping it nearly pinned all the way around the outside of Druids. He's not going to get the run. Oh, they have a little bit of a tangle, but great control there by Butcher. That's allowing Mitchell, and look, that's Dan Kell and Scott Mitchell just behind. So McGlade really needs to play the team game now. Goodness,
he has
Dan Kell, that was a Ricardo send if ever I saw one, up the inside of McGlade, who literally led him past. Chris Butcher had no idea it was coming, and then all of a sudden Dan Kell decided to go up the inside of him through Surtees. He's keeping it pinned round the outside. Dan Kell is very, very much treading on thin ice, as now Jack Nicholls is closing up on his
Davis
teammate.
has gone wide.
So Butcher's got the lead, Kell in 2nd. It is all out war here in the Garden of England, and now Davis goes wide again. So that has really put chances of a victory. But however, if he's anywhere between 6th and 12th position, if he gets pulled out of the hat, he could be on pole for the final race, the 30th and final race of this season. But Butcher, as we now complete another lap, still time to go, still 7 laps remaining. Chris Butcher hanging on to a lead, but no, Dan Kell's got the lead from him, as now Nicholls goes past Mitchell. Toby Davis round the outside into Druids, goes wide, goes very wide, loses positions to Mitchell, Nicholls, and also Scott Sovic in the process. Oh, it's going downhill rather rapidly for Toby Davis here, Phil, wouldn't you agree?
It is, absolutely. He managed to get a fantastic move into the front of the race and take the lead. Unfortunately, it's not lasted long. We know he can do this, though. As we said before, we've seen him do this twice before. In the meantime, at the front, Kell versus Butcher. You cannot write this. Kell has to do everything possible to hold off Butcher and try and score more points. In the background, we've got, looks like Scott Sovic potentially going off at
he has. Yeah. Ben Willis, as a result of that, is 1 step away from provisionally clinching the independence title, because Morby's down in 11th, and Willis is just behind not too far behind Toby Davis. No, so Ben Willis 1 step away from claiming the independence title.
He's doing, as we said, everything he needs to just to score those points and keep it on the black stuff.
But the thing is that Chris Butcher will want to have the bragging rights going into the final race of the season. Oh, there might have been a little bit of contact there because Kell had a massive rear end snap, both sides going into the exit of Clark Curve. But now Butcher having the numbers game thrown at him, because it is 2 Zancho Simsport focuses against 1 Astra from Smile Power Racing. But keep your eyes on the drivers behind. Jack Nichols now up into 4th place ahead of Toby Davis, who is starting to recover. Scott Mitchell in 6th place. Ben Willis. Oh, this is a 3-way scrap, and Toby Davis nearly made it 3 wide going into Surtees as Mitchell up the inside of Nichols. Davis responds and tags as there's contact between Mitchell and Davis. That is going to allow Nichols goes rally crossing as Toby Davis now gets the penalty. It's 3 wide going into Pilgrim's Drop, and pretty much nearly a Mike Rockenfeller-esque 3 wide DTM moment back in 2018. But look, the 2 Kings Racing teammates, Scott Mitchell is ahead as Toby Davis goes bumping over the gravel, and David Alcock. Oh my goodness me, contact! Oh, drama aplenty, and David Alcock. Was
David
it Fiddock? David Fiddock. My apologies there. I think my words just got carried away before my brain did. But David Fiddock just split the 2 Kings Racing drivers, and Jack Nichols has gone down to 12th. We have 5 laps remaining in the penultimate round of the season. Chris Butcher can smell and taste that opportunity that could be presented if Dan Kell does not leave that. If he leaves that door open, Butcher's got a sniff of it. He will be up there quicker than a rat up a drain pipe. Let's have a look at the replay here. Now, here are the 2 Kings Racing teammates. So you've got Nichols on the right, Mitchell on the left, and Fiddock. So Nichols up the inside. The teammates clash a little bit there, and Fiddock goes up the inside, and it's just like he's unsettled Nichols, and he's put Nichols in the barrier. Mitchell's gotten away with that one, and look, this is changing the independence title all the time. I mean, Ben Willis now up into 6th, Bill Morby up into 9th, but Chris Butcher has got the fire in the belly well, and the fireplace is well and truly stoked at the Smile Power Racing number 65 Astra, because he's not relenting. He is absolutely pushing like crazy. And you look at the last lap times, a 1:21.190 from Butcher, a 1:29.229. Now, Jack Nichols gets a penalty for that one. I think Fiddock was just a bit, he tried to, thread the eye of the needle, and Jack Nichols just ended up being worse off as a result of it. So from my perspective, I think Fiddock was the one that unfortunately, he saw a gap, he went through it, it got closed, but I don't think Nichols might have been at fault for that one.
No, I'm not sure on that one, but we can always come back to it. As Chris Butcher, we can see, is harrying Dan Kelly. Got a wonderful inside run through Clark Curve, tried to make it stick on the inside down the start-finish straight and wasn't able to. He's sideways through Graham Hill. They are both throwing everything possible at this. The 2 title protagonists, as they start to drop Lewis McGlade in 3rd position. And here we are, lap 12 of 15. We've got 3 laps left after this one, and they are absolutely hammer and tongs of each other. Butcher is doing everything possible to try and distract Harry, make Kell, go into some sort of mistake, make some sort of mistake, catch the slight bit of curb, catch the slight bit of grass, have a slight bit of oversteer, understeer, doing everything he physically can within his power to see if that forward focus will move. And Kell is holding it off, withstanding the pressure and doing what he can within his arsenal to make sure that he stays ahead of his title rival and scores just those extra couple of points more in the penultimate race of the year. You can't write this. I'm almost on the verge of having no nails here. I can't go with this, guys. We've got 3 more laps. It's brilliant.
Oh, now I wasn't aware of this, so I have to give a birthday shout out to Aidan Milton. So he said he's been forgotten on comms. Well, he is boosting himself up the field, but many happy returns, Aidan. I wasn't aware that it was his birthday today, so thank you very much. And Toby Davis is I'll come to Toby Davis coming off in just a moment. But Aidan, many happy returns. let's see if that boosts you up the field, because you've got a few drivers that you can pass up in front of you, and he's already up into 7th. He's literally half a second away from Mike Bell from Smart Power Racing. So here's a replay, and this is Toby Davis going off, and that's off a Clark curve, and he just loses the back end. I think he just he nearly tagged the wall. Oh, that could be so costly for Ben Willis. And Davis, he's DNF'd. The damage on the front end of that Vauxhall Astra really ending his race quite abruptly. So that means that the likes of Aidan Millward now has... Oh, now Butcher's got the lead because Kell ran wide. And that was going through, was that Westfields, wasn't it, Phil, I think?
It's going through Westfield into Dingledale, where he's run wide, and that's allowed Butcher into the lead, and that's what he was looking for. That was the mistake he was after, and he's got it. On his swap now, Kell's got to try and get back in front and score those vital points as far as the overall Drivers' Championship's concerned now. He's, 2 laps left to go, and they are still hammer and tongs. Will these tyres hang on? This is the other thing in the background. Soft tyres on, remember, this time out, which we haven't seen since Silverstone National. Both drivers on the soft tyres and pushing hard since the start of the race. So it's how much longer that tyre wear lasts before they start to find that the likes of McGlade and Mitchell and Willis make their way back towards them. And just as a shout to Ben Willis, obviously, he's in 5th place now. And as we were speaking about Aidan Millward, happy birthday, Aidan Millward. Aidan's up in 7th, which is the highest he's been so far in the 2 races today. So doing everything he can to score points and try and close the gap to his title rival, Ben Willis.
Well, the biggest thing is that Aidan Millward, in the 2nd sector the previous lap, took nearly 2.5 tenths of a second out of Mike Bell. As now Chris Butcher again battling with Dan Kell for the lead, and I think we're really getting close to the end, towards the end of this race, Phil. But Millward has been putting, I'm just seeing again, he was over a tenth quicker than Mike Bell. So Mike Bell not out of the woods, and Aidan Millward could get 6th position in the dying stages of this race. He's absolutely on it in the BMW. Look, we're on board with him now.
There we go.
Now see, he's really charging forward, and not only has he got Mike Bell in front, he's also got Ben Willis. So and these 3 are split by 9 tenths of a second, and you can just see how hard. Look at the amount of concentration on Aidan's face. He is literally looking.
I think he was going for number 1 there.
Yeah. But you can see, look, Paul and Willis are now really doing great jobs. They're trying to battle between themselves. So effectively, I think Aidan Millward has got a shot at getting 5th place. Now he's going towards the outside of Ben Willis. Now, Mike Bell has got past Ben Willis, who has dropped down to 6th place. So Aidan Millward, he's got a real good chance of, I think, probably when they get towards Pilgrim's Drop, that's going to be the start of when he's going to start putting things together. The headlights ablaze on the number 67 BMW. Scott Sovic, who is in 9th, has now got a penalty. So it's going to get really interesting. Now you're going to see how much of a run the BMW is going to get on the Subaru and the Vauxhall Astra. They come through Pilgrim's Drop, down towards Hawthorns. And the Subaru closing on the Vauxhall Astra. Millward just keeping behind, keeping it nice and clean and composed, and just waiting for an opportunity. Now they go through Westfields, through into Dingledale, and you can just see how close he's keeping. Now, this is quite smart and tactical from Aidan Millward, and he's had his trials and tribulations this season, but now we see that Chris Butcher is going to win the penultimate race this season by a mere fraction ahead of Dan Kell. And Aidan Millward, he's fast running out of time. I think if he had another lap and Ben Willis and Mike Bell had come to blows, he would be up in 5th position, but he's done a great job to keep it in 7th place. So McGlade takes 3rd, Mitchell takes 4th, Mike Bell 5th ahead of Ben Willis, Aidan Millward in 7th ahead of Phil Morby, David Fidduck and Scott Sovic round out the top 10 positions. Daniel Slattery, well, actually Slattery takes 10th. Sovic demoted as a result of the penalty post-race, takes 11th. Ed Straw.
Ed Straw, in fact, being shown as 11th now. Scott Sovic in 12th. Sylvain Vessier Coming home in 13th, Sandro Ballesteros in 14th, and then Jack Nicholls a lap down, but coming out of the pits right on the last lap, taking the last points paying position in 15th place in the Second Kings Racing Mercedes. So an absolutely cracking second race we've had there, with the title protagonists going head to head. Amazing racing between the pair, and very clean racing as well, considering the amount of pressure that both gentlemen are under in regards to the title battle. And they've done everything they possibly can, everything that they have within their ability to be able to make this work. As we can see, Chris Butcher is the winner of round 29, ahead of Dan Kell and the Zancho Sim Sport Focus, his title rival. Lewis McGlade, Scott Mitchell and Mike Bell complete the top 5. Ben Willis comes home just ahead of Aidan Millward, as we saw in the final laps of the race, with Phil Morby, David Fiddock making 9th position, and Daniel Slattery completing the top 10 in the Rage Racing MG. So good drives back through the field there. Some incidents of contact. Just to complete the rest of the running order, we've got Scott Sovic in the Smile Power Racing Astra in 11th. Ed Straw, in fact, the two of them showed tied as 11th place there. So not sure what's happened. Sylvain Vestier is 12th. In 13th, sorry, Sandro Ballesteros in 14th. Jack Nicholls, as we said, one lap down in 15th place. Toby Davis DNF'd after some really good racing where he was involved in the lead of the race, and then Bradley Brockies and Jean-Michel Loriot completing the top 18 drivers, unfortunately not finishing the race. So that's the penultimate race of the season. That's round 29 of the VMO TCUK series. One race left to go, and it is now everyone going all out for glory. Really looking forward to this. Hopefully we'll get Alex back after some technical difficulties there. Not sure what's happened, but yes, the guys now preparing for the final race of the day, the final race of the season, to see who can give their best and who can come out on top and seal those titles. Can Ben Willis do any more to see if he can seal the Independence title? Smile Power Racing, it's within their grasp as far as the team's title is concerned, and as we said so far, the overall drivers title battle between both Dan Kell and Chris Butcher, who are both giving everything they have. Fantastic racing, great to see a dry track after race 1 was wet with the wet tyres, and some of the drivers taking the option tyres. Last race of the year, those drivers that have that left will bolt on the options, I'm sure, for the final round. And then we will see exactly who has got the best setup, who is able to make the progress forward, who can make the most places up in their quest to see who is where everyone can finish in the best position they can for the end of the year. So another
To allow us to be able to compete on a level playing field, we've had to use existing technology to create a set of hand controls that allow us to race on a level playing field. So if you imagine you're going to chicane at 150 miles an hour, our disabled drivers have to be able to go through the chicane at the same speed as the able-bodied driver. That means braking, steering, gear down, on the throttle, off the throttle, on the brake. Now, if we keep losing half a second or a few tenths of a second at every chicane, we might be the best driver on the track, but we can't be competitive. So that was the criteria that I gave the engineers, that if we can't do that, then we can't go racing. Al Locke he's the brains behind our team. He's our race engineer. I tell him what I want and how I want it. He said it's not possible, and I know it's possible because I believe in Al. The cost of the hand controls varies from about £5,000 to about £7,500. That's because we've managed to find a manufacturer in Slovenia that does all this specialist engineering. None of this would be possible without Al's British engineering.
The main thing that inspires me to keep going with Team Brit is the quest for constant improvement. You know, we've developed a set of hand controls, and we're not a team that's going to rest on their laurels. We're constantly pushing for better and faster developments.
It is now time for the 30th and final race.
So here we are back for
well, Phil, can you hear me?
3, just waiting for warm.
Apologies for that. We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties. But it's now time for the 30th and final race. This is where it is all water under the bridge after this particular 15-lap race here for the conclusion of the inaugural Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship, as we have 3 titles to decide here in the Garden of England at the fantastic Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And we do have a reverse grid draw. We are just awaiting the confirmation on who will be the driver that gets the reverse grid pole position for the final time this season. I'm sure that I will be told momentarily who that will be. But in many respects, it has been an interesting, dynamic, action-packed season all the way through. From when we started here at the Brands Hatch Indy circuit, we have been all across the virtual countryside of the United Kingdom and Scotland. We've been to Donington Park, we've been to Brands Hatch, we've been to Silverstone National, Thruxton, Alton Park, Snetterton 300, Croft, Knockhill and Silverstone International, and now we are here at Brands Hatch Grand Prix. The titles will be decided. There will be those that will have bragging rights, and there will be those that will be disappointed that it wasn't enough to get there across the finish line first. Because in racing, to finish first you have to finish. And it has been about consistency. It has been about being in the right place at the right time. And we are literally on tender hooks here at VMO to find out who will be our inaugural overall drivers champion. So, Aidan Millward gets another bit of a birthday present because he will be on the reverse grid Pole position drawn between numbers 6 and 12 in terms of the finishing order for race 2. So the option 13 SimSport BMW will be front and centre here at Brands Hatch for the final time this season. And your guess is as good as mine as to who will be triumphant, who will be the ones that will have bragging rights. And in many respects, it's going to be interesting because alongside him is Ben Willis from Drag Racing. It is an all rear-wheel drive front row, 15 laps of spectacle, of racing, of tin-top action here in the VMO Touring Car UK Championship. So it looks like Phil Kinch will not be joining me for the final race of the season, but it has been a pleasure all the same having him alongside me, and a real privilege and a pleasure. A good friend of mine, a touring car enthusiast, as we now go on to the formation lap for one final time, the 30th and final conclusive race of the inaugural Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship. Let's have a look at the final grid of the season. So Aidan Millward will start on pole position. Alongside him will be Drag Racing's Ben Willis in the 85. Then we have Mike Bell from Smile Power Racing and Scott Mitchell from Kings Racing rounding out the first 2 rows on the grid. Row 3, it's Lewis McGlade from Sancho SimSport, and also his teammate in the number 89, Dan Kell. Chris Butcher, champion-elect, champion waiting, is in the next position, and it looks like Phil Morby will be alongside him on the 8th starting position on the grid. Dave Fiddock and Daniel Slattery round out the top 10 positions. Scott Sovic, Sandro Ballesteros, Jack Nichols, Toby Davis round out the top 16 positions. And behind them will be Jean-Michel Loriot in the last position on the grid, along with Bradley Brockies. So this is it. It is time to decide our champions. It is time for one final hurrah, and I couldn't think of a better place than a circuit that is close and dear to my heart. I first visited Brands Hatch in 1986 with my father. We missed out on the F1 qualifying, and that was the year where Nigel Mansell was racing for Williams Honda at that time in the turbo-powered era. So as Aidan Millward and Ben Willis brings them round Clark Curve, we are about to go racing for one final time. Who is going to be the top dog? Who's going to get bragging rights here ahead of the winter period for VMO? We're about to find out. Who's your bets on going into Paddock Hill Bend for the first time? It is BMW versus Subaru on the front row, Vauxhall versus Mercedes on row 2, and all Ford row 3, and a Vauxhall and a Subaru on row 4, with a Focus and an MG completing the top 10. Ladies and gentlemen, we will stay on board for the moment with Aidan Millward. Red lights on the gantry, revs building. Lights out, we are off and racing one final time, as it is a drag race between rear-wheel drive power, BMW up the inside of Subaru, as it looks like Aidan Millward gets the run on to Ben Willis. Ben Willis kept it around the outside of Aidan Millward, as towards the back of us, Aidan Millward gets spat out, going into durance for the first time. Not what the birthday boy wanted, but in the meantime, look at what's is changing. Hand over fist at the front of the field. Ben Willis leads away. Looks like Mike Bell in second, Scott Mitchell in third, Dan Kell, Lewis McGlade, Chris Butcher, Phil Morby, Sylvain Vestier from E-Team Brit 2 has jumped all the way to 8th place. Dave Fiddock and Scott Sovic now up into 10th place. Toby Davis up to 11th as they now come their way through into Hawthorns. Phil Morby being pressurised by the 129 of E-Team Brit 2, Sylvain Vessier. Vessier gets a really good run as they go down through Dingle Dell. Vessier with an absolutely brilliant overtake up the inside of Phil Morby, going through to Sheens. Great job by the youngster for E-Team Brit, who just going to be competing in the EEWC 24 Hours of Le Mans next time around, well, next week in fact. And it's a big 24-hour race for the four-man crew, which will include Bradley Brockies and Sandro Ballesteros. Slattery and Loriot now DNF'd as Morby trying to force him. Oh, he's punted off. That's a pure punt from Morby, who gets tagged not just by Davis, but then also Fiddick comes in to smack into the left rear. And oh, that's a roll for Jack Nicholls in the final race of the season. Oh, Jack Nicholls, that's a real shame. That was definitely more than about 4 to 5 rolls for Jack Nicholls. So that gives him an opportunity, as now Mike Bell challenging Ben Willis for the lead. Morby down in 14th. If Willis keeps himself in the top 3, he has secured the Independence title. But he's wanting to go for a victory at the end of the season, the last race, and go into the off-season with a comfortable amount of also motivation and brimful of confidence. But watch out for Bell. Mitchell in 3rd, Dan Kell rounding out the top 4, Chris Butcher now in 5th place, and he is closing fast. Willis leading the way in terms of the fastest lap of anybody, which also nets you in an additional point of 1 minute 35.131. That's a complete lap number 3 out of 15. Subaru leads from Vauxhall, Mercedes, and then Ford. Dan Kell puts in the fastest lap of the race, so 1 minute 29.095. That's an absolutely blistering lap. And then Chris Butcher trumps that one by a considerable margin of 128.769. And look how close he is to the back bumper of Dan Kell. And Chris Butcher, with the way he's driven all the way through this season, he is just a few moments away from becoming the champion. Right, okay, now we're going back to the tagging match between Sylvain Vessier and Phil Morby. So Vessier tries to turn in, Morby tags him, he gets spun out, then Toby Davis hits him, and then he gets spun through 360 by Davis, and then Fiddick has absolutely nowhere to go, and this is a tag between, I think, Jack Nicholls and Bradley Brockies, I believe, and Jack Nicholls, it's the slightest amount of tagging there. And Nicholls goes rolling, and he has DNF'd. So now it is getting really hot under the collar at the front of the field. Ben Willis holding on ahead of Mike Bell. Scott Mitchell in 3rd. Dan Kell and Chris Butcher in 4th. Lewis McGlade rounding out the top 6 positions. And Phil, are you there, buddy?
I am, yes. I'm not sure what's happened there. Apologies for technical issues, but looks like everything's going on quite nicely, and we've got some fun racing happening.
Well, I think you probably did see Jack Nicholls rolling over at Paddock Hill Bend.
Oh, ouch. It's not what we needed, unfortunately, for Jack. He's done that a couple of times this year already, but at the front, the racing is nice and tight. As we can see, the top 6 drivers working hard and pushing each other as hard as they can, obviously, for the last points of the year.
Indeed they are. So, and it looks like Butcher. So I think in some respects, Phil, I think Chris Butcher has already signed up that title. As soon as he took that victory last time out, he secured himself that title. Ben Willis still leading. We're on lap number 4 out of 15 as they go through into Hawthorns. Down the Derek Minter straight through into the right at Westfields before the dip into Dingle Dell. And then through into Sheen Curve. And you can just see the amount of commitment by the top 5. They are literally, you can't put a sheet of A4 paper between them, as Butcher swarming all over the back bumper of Dan Kell. He just wants to get one up on him, doesn't he, really? That's all he needs to do now.
He does. It is just as tight as you can see as it is. Everyone going as hard as they can, looking for a place. You know, the smallest gap will be enough for any one of these drivers to try and make their way forward. And as we've seen, Bell pushing Willis hard again as we come on to lap number 5 out of 15, and Bell going for the inside at Paddock Hill Bend. Can he do it? He takes a lot of curb, but he's not close enough. Doesn't look as though he can give him a run into Druids, although he's trying to defend as Scott Mitchell comes from 3rd position to see if he can harry the Vauxhall Astra driver.
Yeah, so that's very, very good racing from the top 6 at the moment. As you can see that Ben Willis is now getting a bit of a gap. He's got about half a second over Mike Bell. Scott Mitchell doing a great job for Kings Racing, who effectively have sewn up 3rd in the team standings because of the fact that they got enough points in race number 1. Don't forget, through social media, if you are sharing this, please use the hashtags TCUK and VMO. You can just see how hard everyone is pushing here. It's just absolutely brilliant just to see that these drivers are literally, they're on the point of limit of adhesion. As Scott Mitchell now really trying to push Mike Bell for 2nd position, the number 22 from Kings Racing. He's also had his fair share of trials and tribulations this season, and in many respects, this is a great spirited driver. I first knew Scott working with him in the checkered flag, which Phil was also previously associated. I started doing the DTM report, and Scott was in the BTCC paddock, and now he's working with the race as one of their F1 reporters. He's also made appearances on Swedish television in terms of his expertise within Formula 1. And you can now see that McGlade is trying to go up the inside of Butcher through up towards Druids, up the Halewood Hill. So really, in many respects, it's still all game on, as you can just see that. Look how committed Lewis McGlade was trying to go through the outside of Druids. He ran it completely wide and got a good run coming down into Graham Hill Bend.
He did, and there's no lack of commitment there from the Sancho Sim Sport driver, as we've seen earlier in the year. A wonderful camera view. Thank you very much, Mike. That's brilliant to see. The side of Ben Willis's Subaru, right behind him, Mike Bell, pushing from 2nd position to see if he can pass the Subaru driver, see if he can try and take a victory in the final race of the year and take that final glory. Remember, everyone remembers you from your last race performance, and the person who wins the final race of the year is normally the one they're talking about when the next season starts. So Bell doing everything he can, whilst Willis is defending as hard as he can, and right behind him, the slightest mistake from these two, as we see Willis going a little bit wide coming out of Sterling's, and before you know it, you will have the likes of Scott Mitchell, Dan Kell and Chris Butcher snapping at their heels. So a 6-car train for the lead, with Ben Willis, Mike Bell, Scott Mitchell, Dan Kell, Chris Butcher and Lewis McGlade all within this fight. The slightest mistake from any one of these drivers, in fact it looks as though Toby Davis has gone wide and gone very wide on the Brabham Straight, while Scott Sovic sets the fastest lap of the race on a 1:28.702, as we see Dan Kell defending from his former title rival, now 2020 title winner Chris Butcher, and there is no shortage of hard work still going on, because this isn't over until the checkered flag falls, and we've still got several more laps before that happens, and these guys are pushing for everything they have.
Yes, very much the case, and it is all elbows out here as we're on lap number 7 out of 15. It's not over yet between Butcher and McGlade. This is the battle for 5th position. Going down Pilgrim's Drop into the right at Hawthorns. Butcher's got the inside run, sweeps up the inside, but the pair clash door panels. McGlade not wanting Butcher to get past, because effectively what they're battling for now is the team's title. And I'm not too sure if that's been 100% completely sewn up, but the way that Butcher, and also just behind is Scott Sovic, is really going to have, and Ben Willis, I have to give credit where credit is due. He has been absolutely brilliant. He's really put a defensive number on Mike Bell from Smile Power Racing, who's trying to get past him every which way he can, but Willis is not backing down. He wants to fight for this victory, and he wants to take it at the final race of the season. Good on you, Ben. Well done.
Cracking stuff as we see Ben defending on the inside of Paddock Hill Bend from Mike Bell. Both of them on the option tyres. We see Scott Mitchell now coming into the fight as well. The more that we see Bell and Willis fighting with each other, the other guys close up. In fact, Mitchell's got the inside line.
Oh, he's 3 wide coming out of Druids.
in fantastic stuff there with Mitchell throwing it on the inside. They still stay in position. In fact, Kel's got the run on the inside of the Cooper straight now, so Kel could go up to third place, unfortunately, as there's a small, looks so small cockpit of contact between Bell and Willis up front. But yeah, Kel is trying to get past Scott Mitchell, and it looks as though they are side by side as we come through Pilgrim's Drop. This isn't done bar any of the shouting yet. As we see the top three now, Willis, Bell and Kel all going through. Glade fighting with Mitchell for fourth position, and yeah, it looks as though McGlade is still there. In fact, no, he's fallen behind Mitchell. So Mitchell stays in fourth position, and that allows the two Small Power Racing for the teeth in gear.
Get your false teeth back in, Phil. Come on, it's the last race of the season.
They had to appear somewhere.
Well, it did after your technical difficulties, and now this. But look, Kel trying to look to get a way past Mike Bell very, very shortly with Scott Mitchell waiting in the wings once again in the number 22 from Kings Racing. He is looking good. If he gets an opportunity to get a chance at a podium, there is the chance that if Bell and Kel do clash in the next 7 laps, he's got a chance to keep himself in the hunt, and he's doing the right thing. He is making sure that he lets them know that he is there, and he definitely made sure of that when they went through Druids the last time, because he put it on the inside, which put him on the outside for Graham Hill Bend. And you can see the run that Mitchell's getting now. He's running the back bumper of Kel going through into Surtees. Ben Willis now has got a lead of over 7/10 of a second. I cannot believe how well Ben Willis has really responded, because he knew that he had to get a run. So just looking at the running order, we've got 14 drivers still left. Retirements, unfortunately, from Toby Davis, Jack Nichols, Jean-Michel Loriot, Daniel Slattery. Loriot and Slattery didn't even make it to the end of lap 1. So Willis leads by nearly a second now from Mike Bell. Dan Kell in third, Scott Mitchell fourth, Chris Butcher, Scott Sovic, Lewis McGlade, Aidan Millward, the birthday boy, David Fiddock, and Ed Straw rounds out the top 10 at the moment. Sylvain Vessier, Phil Morby, Sandro Ballesteros and Bradley Brockies, the latter two from E-Team Brit, now rounding out the 14 that are still competing, as now Mitchell is being put under pressure by Chris Butcher as they go into Paddock Hill Bend. But Scott Mitchell gets a little bit, he had a little bit of a miss. I think he locked up his brakes there, going through into the blind apex of Paddock Hill Bend, and that allowed Butcher to go up the inside through into fourth place. Oh, can you sense a little bit of blood in the water here, Phil? Because I think I feel something coming.
Yes, something is definitely brewing between these guys. It is definitely building. I can see it kicking off quite nice in the last few laps, but we shall see as we follow Butcher now, trying to close on Dan Kell. So looking for third place in the small power racing box Alastra. Out front, Ben Willis is doing all he can, a fantastic job in the Subaru to hold that gap to Mike Bell, and the defensive driving so far has paid off. Because the others have been fighting with each other for position, that's allowed him to build a gap. That's exactly what he needs, as we see Scott Mitchell going a little bit wide through Westfield and into Dingle Dell, whilst Butcher is starting to line up Dan Kell, and we see Mike Bell going wide coming out of the Sheen curve through Sterling's. That's allowed the 3 cars, so Bell, Kell and Butcher, to close up with each other, and all the while Ben Willis is stretching his lead out in front to just over a second as we come on through the Clark curve, down the Brabham Straight, and we start the beginning of lap 11 with second, third and fourth all together, as Butcher looks to see if he can pull a move on Kell coming into Paddock Hill Bend. Can't make it happen and takes quite a bit of curb on the inside, and this allows Kell a chance to have a look and see if he can go for second place from Mike Bell. But these guys are sticking so close together, doing everything they can, looking for that small edge, that small gap to see if they can pass. And you wouldn't think this is the final race of the year. They're just pushing as hard as they have been in every other race so far.
Well, it's always customary in tin top racing circles these days, just to make sure that those kind of things do happen. Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting with just a handful of laps still to go.
as we've just seen there. But
Yeah, you carry on there, Phil. I've just got a message to it.
okay, so we're seeing Butcher, as we say, pushing Kell very hard for third position. These three drivers, nose to tail, as we come around the back end of the circuit through Dingledale and into the Sheen curve. And once again, Bell now defending hard. So Bell, Kell and Butcher, second, third and fourth, running it up as Ben Willis goes wide, coming out of the Sheen curve on the run down to the Clark curve to complete lap 11. Kell gets a little bit of a slide coming through Clark curve, and that allows Butcher to close even more. The three of them, you can't even put a paper's width between the three of them. They're that close to each other and pushing hard, looking for every single gap as Kell dives deeply for the inside. There's contact going into Paddock Hill Bend between Kell and Bell, and that allows Butcher to get the inside line and come through into Druids. He's staying there ahead of his former title rival, and Butcher takes third position from Kell through Druids, although Kell is still there, looking to see if he can try and take the place back through Graham Hill and on the run down to the Cooper Straight. So cracking move on the inside there from Chris Butcher as he puts the Small Power Racing Astra into third position, but Kell isn't done yet. He is pushing back, seeing if he can get past Butcher and see if he can retake that final podium position as the lights come on Ben Willis's Subaru as they start to look as though they're lapping cars. Ahead, I think it's one of the Team Brick cars, potentially Bradley Brocky's. They're coming up to lap on lap number 12. We've got 3 laps left after this one, and again, Kell doing everything he can to harry Butcher. This is what we've seen in both races so far today, and it's a three-peat, not a repeat, a three-peat of the two of them going hammer and tongs at each other as they battle for position. Mike Bell just in front with a small gap, and in the meantime Ben Willis is walking away at the front.
Yep, so we're fast going to be on to just a handful of laps to go. Can't believe I'm saying those words, Phil, as now the team game really coming into play, because look what's happening here. Butcher is being allowed past by Mike Bell. Now this is where the team game... Oh!
It nearly went wrong there.
No, it nearly went wrong, but when you think about it, Mike Bell knew that he had to close the door on Dan Kell. Now, obviously, when it's a team game that you're playing, you want to make sure that your talisman driver is at the top of the field. And that particular driver, I will be honest with you, has been Chris Butcher. You know, he's pretty much secured the title. Ben Willis has got to watch himself, because I'm now looking at the lap times. Ben Willis last time around did a 1:29.4. Chris Butcher 1:29.615. So just over 2/10 off. But now that Chris Butcher has got some clean air, do you feel that the soon-to-be newly crowned champion of VMO TCUK for 2020 is going to go at a run for not only the fastest lap of the race, which is being held by, actually Scott Sovic holds that with the 1:28.702. Do you think he's going to want to close out this season in style with a victory?
He is, definitely, and I'm afraid that Ben Willis, I think, also has the same idea, having the chance to run at the front and dominate the race as he is. So you're going to have two people looking for the same goal, looking to drive past the checkered flag first and cross the finish line. And from the looks of this, Butcher is pushing hard, closing the gap, and he's doing everything he can to see if he can close that gap down to Willis and see if he can take the race win. So we are not done yet. We're into the final 2 laps of the race, and this is not done just yet, as in the background it looks as though Dan Kell and Mike Bell are fighting again, with Scott Sovic also involved in the battle as well.
Yeah, so Scott Mitchell is there, and he's now literally on the back bumper of Sovic. So anything, the tide could turn. And who knows, Kings Racing could get a podium on the final race of the season, because there's this, and there's just a couple of more laps to go. Scott Mitchell now has a possible opportunity here to have a really good end of his season. And I know for a fact that both him and Jack Nichols have been pushing hard. You know, they've been with the championship since it started, and really have shown some great performances all the way through the season. And now that they've got used to the Mercedes cars, it really does show that when you've got two teammates that are pushing each other quite hard, and they race each other hard and fair. Let's not forget that between Scott and Jack. They do indeed. But I think we are now going to go on to the final lap of the 30th race of the inaugural VMO Touring Car UK Championship, with the season finale being held here at Brands Hatch Grand Prix. This time, Ben Willis has one more lap to negotiate to secure the independence title here. Chris Butcher already pretty much confirmed as the season champion, and I think very much that Smile Power Racing will also be confirmed as the team's champions, because look, Chris Butcher and Scott Sovic rounding out the top three on the podium, but Scott Mitchell, he's got time not on his side now. He's about 8/10 off of Scott Sovic, but can he close up on the Astra in the latter part of this lap itself? Because he's being pressurised by Dan Kell, and who's not to say what might happen? Because now they go through into Hawthorns for the final time. Ben Willis, not faster than Chris Butcher on that sector, but he was less than a tenth slower. He's a little bit of an off-track excursion. If he does another one like that, Butcher will be at his door. As now Kell trying to go up the inside of Mitchell. This could get very leery very quickly if they give each other enough racing room. And Mitchell loses out there, but instantly tries to fire back up the inside of Dan Kell. So Dan Kell in fourth place, as now round the final corner, the final race fixture of the season in the 2020 VMO TCUK Championship. It's Ben Willis from Drake Racing, who effectively, de facto, takes the independence crown. Chris Butcher, your 2020 season champion overall, takes second, ahead of Scott Sovic, who make it I think pretty much what could be the team's title secured for Smile Power Racing. Dan Kell close but no cigar. Scott Mitchell in fifth, Lewis McGlade in sixth, Mike Bell in seventh. Here's Aidan Millward, and he has come across the line in eighth place. A real shame, unfortunately, after having that opportunity to come through from pole position on the reverse grid draw. David Fiddock takes ninth, ahead of Ed Straw. Sylvain Vessier takes 11th in the E-Team Brit 2 129 entry. And there's backwards donuts a la Stefano Camini from the inaugural champion, Chris Butcher from Smile Power Racing. I'll be having some words with that chap, and he's even putting the handbrake on. Good show there, Chris. Well done. Ed Straw rounds off his season with a top 10 for King's Dealer Racing in the 17. Sylvain Vessier in 11th. Phil Morby in 12th. Sandro Ballesteros and Bradley Brockies also secure more points for E-Team Brit, with Toby Davis retiring on lap 5, Jack Nichols on lap 2, Jean-Michel Loriot and Daniel Slattery not finishing the race. Well, Phil.
Breathe.
Breathe.
We're both
mate, it's been an absolute pleasure.
It has.
Working alongside you. To be honest with you, when we first started working together on this, do you have any idea how things would sort of snowball, I think is the term I'm looking for here, buddy?
No idea whatsoever. I was absolutely honoured and a little bit terrified, I'll be honest, when you asked me about this. And as is normal for myself, had a quick chat with the wife to go, is this a good idea? Yeah, it'll be fine. You have a go. And wow, to be honest, every fortnight on a Tuesday, I have really looked forward to this and enjoyed every single evening's racing since joining you at Silverstone National. Alex, it's been a fantastic honour to work alongside you. This has been brilliant racing and a great series. Thank you very much.
The pleasure is all mine, and it's been a privilege having you alongside. And just to think, after this, I think you know, at the end of the day, Phil and I have known each other for quite a few years now. We're very, very good friends, both on and off the track. And I could not think of anyone better to have as my compadre in the virtual commentary box. But what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to head down to the interview booth, because there are some people that I need to speak to. So Phil, I'll be back with you in just a couple of moments.
Will do.
And we'll close things out here at VMO.
Will do.
Ben Willis, firstly, congratulations on winning the final race of the season, but I think if my calculations are correct, congratulations on securing the Independence title this year. Well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a super fun final race. Both Chris and Mike pushed me super hard. I was running out of tire towards the end and kind of just hanging on, but yeah, and then all season it's been really good fun. We've had our ups and downs throughout it, but yeah, pretty good final race.
And also, one of the biggest things that you showed that you are capable of winning races. You kept Mike, you kept Chris, I think you kept Dan at bay. I mean, we know that Scott was in the mix there as well. So that must have been a really, really good reward. I mean, it's a tough track here at Brands Hatch Grand Prix. And, you must be happy now. You're thinking, yeah, when won the Independence, maybe I could go for next season, go for the overall. Do you think that's possible? Let's be honest.
I'm not sure about the overall. There's so many great drivers here. And I have to admit, I got pretty lucky with some of the reverse poles to get into those positions in the final races. But, I'm happy with where we finished. It's always been close racing every round. There's always been someone kind of near where my pace level is, which isn't quite at the top. But, yeah, it's been a really good fun season, really great racing. Great to have the independent title. Props to Phil and Aidan for pushing me all the way there. And yeah, we'll see what next season brings.
Definitely. Well done, Ben. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Chris Butcher, inaugural VMO TCUK champion. How does that sound? Well done. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. It's absolutely fantastic. It's been a tough fight all season long, and Dan and the other Zanshow guys have pushed me hard all season. But yeah, I'm kind of glad to be at the end of it now. I'm absolutely exhausted.
I'm not at all surprised. I mean, there were times when we saw how close that Mike was getting to Ben, and you have to give credit where credit is due. He got the lead. Obviously, Aidan had that unfortunate turnaround going through into Druids, but Ben's sort of steely determination, it didn't faze him, did it?
He did really well. He had a lot of pressure from Mike early on, and then me afterwards, and he just kept his head down and knuckled under and got on with the job. So really deserved a win there.
Yeah. Also, I heard some news, obviously, about the fact that you and Toby Davis are bringing back THR, which is a rather interesting development, because he pinged me a message on Discord and said, yeah, if you're wondering about the second half of my livery, and I was like thinking, I wondered why I recognised that. That's really good to see that you guys are going to bring THR back. That sounds really, really cool. How did that sort of get started then?
Well, Toby obviously kind of a few years back won the Team Hard VW scholarship, so he's racing kind of took a back seat from there, and he sort of really got back into it this season. And when we ran THR sort of 5 years ago, it was a really, really successful team, and I think it's just nice to bring a bit of that nostalgia back to the grid. We've both been having a lot of fun this season, so and we've known each other for a long time now, so it kind of made sense to carry that on.
Well, Chris, many congratulations. Well done on securing the inaugural title. And I think, if my calculations are correct, I think Smile Power Racing also secured the team's title provisionally too.
I have no idea, to be completely
You'd be more worried about securing your own title about the teams, but I think the numbers game really played to your favour. Obviously, no Matt Richards this evening. And it just showed how competitive it's been all year, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if that is the case, and obviously it's great to take both titles. I'm not convinced, to be honest with you. I know that it was really, really close, but it's been a huge competition this year. Everybody's pushed really hard, and it's really nice to get that that title at the end. It kind of validates what we're doing, and commiserations to Zanshow, because I know they pushed really hard to try and get that in the end.
Well, Chris, congratulations on taking the overall driver's title this season, and really, really good to see you on the top step, so to speak, buddy. Well done.
Thanks very much.
Right, next up, pleased to actually finally speak to this man, ABB Formula E commentator, and one of the duo from Kings Racing, Jack Nichols, joins me. Jack, firstly, I wanted to congratulate both you and Scott on securing third in the team's championship for Kings Racing this year. Well done.
Well, I want to thank you for saying ABB. That will get me a lot of positives with the sponsors. That's great. Yeah, no, really happy with third for Kings Racing. It's been a up and down year. I've mainly been down with a few ups, and Scott's mainly been up with a few downs. So, you know, overall we've balanced out really in sort of confidence levels.
And obviously, you guys have been racing each other very, very hard and fair all the way through the season, especially in the final race. You know, in race 2, race 3. You know, you guys were really, really pushing hard. How has it been sort of having Scott working alongside you as a teammate as well? Because it's very difficult in touring car racing, especially not just from a virtual way, but also from a real life way, because having the season here is just like the BTCC.
I've enjoyed racing with Scott a lot, actually. It's been a lot of fun, and we tend not to, honestly, we tend not to race too much. When we did some side-by-side in race 2 today, that ultimately ended up with me pushing him off the track. That's probably why I try not to fight him too often, really, because it's such like a kind of chess game. You know what I mean? Like, you've just got to sit in there and wait for things to happen and pick your move. So if we start banging doors, then I think we'll just kind of go backwards. But no, it's been a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it, and Scott's great.
Awesome, thank you, Jack. Scott, it's been a while since we've last spoken. I think I can't remember when the heck that was, but congratulations on some good results this season, mate. It's been nice being behind the wheel of a touring car, albeit it being very, very much virtually.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I guess it would have been in the checkered flag days.
Yeah, which I've made a couple of mentions when I think you started doing BTCC. And I joined at the same time, and I started doing DTM. So we were both involved in some sort of touring car capacity. You know, and our paths have sort of gone very differently. I've ended up doing commentary, and you know, you're doing a lot of F1 reporting now for the race, which is good to see how things are going for you, mate. But just tell us about your season from your perspective, because it's been quite tough out there, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think the first half of the year was a lot of sort of okay potential, and then just not quite stringing it together, whether it was me making mistakes or getting caught up in someone else's incidents. It was just all a bit silly. But the second half of the year actually put together some pretty decent results and had some good battles. Always been a little bit flattered because like guys like Chris and Mike, Lewis, Dan, etc. All of those guys, they're so fast, even though they've got loads of ballast. So you know, although I started to sneak into the top 10 in the points, was always going into qualifying and race 1 with barely any ballast, basically. So it had a little bit of an unfair advantage, but it's been great fun. We've, as you've seen, obviously, we've roped in Ed Straw at the end of this season. We even managed to flag an XF1 driver in Korea to come join us for a couple of races. And the editor-in-chief at the race, Glenn Freeman, sort of is basically on the pit wall. He follows as many races as possible, and you know what? It's been absolutely mega. All credit to the guys who've organised it, because it's given me the old sort of club racing feel, where you're going racing with mates, and you know all the people you're up racing against. You know who you can lean on. You know who you have to be a little bit careful with, shall we say? And it's just been brilliant. It's taken me right back to my like karting days, and it's just been absolute bags of fun.
You know what's really funny, Scott, though? Never in my wildest dreams would I ever thought he'd be commentating on Curran, and he would be rocking a Williams Renault tribute livery from the 1990s. Bill actually pointed out before I even noticed it. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pleasure having you guys with us this season, and all credit to you guys for securing third overall in the team's title.
Thank you very much.
Right, okay, I think now we're going to close out the show this evening. I'm going to head back up to the virtual commentary box to close things out with Phil. So let's get on with it. So Phil, some really good to hear from Jack and Scott from Kings Racing. Also hearing from Ben Willis, our independence champion, Chris Butcher, our overall champion. What a season it's been, buddy. It's been absolutely brilliant. The door-to-door, wheel-to-wheel, door rubbing that we've seen all the way through this season. It's been really good, hasn't it?
It has. It's been fantastic. Thoroughly enjoyed every minute of it. Congratulations, obviously, to Chris on his overall title, to Ben on the independence title, and obviously to Smile Power Racing for the team's title. All hard work. Everyone we've seen race at each venue since I joined you has raced incredibly hard. Every single point earned the hardest way possible. So a fantastic job by all the drivers and the teams to put on the show they've been able to do, push as hard as they've been able to, and give us a fantastic show all season long. And also a fantastic job to Mike, keeping both you and I on the straight and narrow, as it were, and doing a fantastic job with broadcasting all season. It's been an absolute honour to join you, Alex, and obviously Mike, in what has been a really, really amazing experience. So yeah, absolutely beaming from ear to ear at the minute.
Yeah, so quite a few thank yous. Firstly, the team behind the Virtual Motorsport Online Touring Car UK Championship, Mike Yao from Simply Race, you watching at home, every single one of the drivers that have competed here in the VMO Touring Car UK Championship. Thank you ever so much for joining us all the way through these past few months, actually, when we started back in March of this year. That's it from myself, Alex Goldschmidt, and Phil Kinch, your commentators for the VMO Touring Car UK Championship in 2020. Take care, have a great evening, and stay safe. See you very soon. Bye-bye.